friends, welcome to my channel. In this video we will be learning map, filter and reduce function. These are very useful function and used extensively in Python. So let's get started. Okay, so for this video I'll be using collab.research.google.com. So if you have a Google account, you can use this notebook, and collab.google.com is helpful to create the Python code in the browser. It's pretty simple to use and very powerful. So let's get started. So let's see what Python library explains about map. So we can check that by help map. Okay. So it gives a pretty good information. So it says map. So that's the syntax map function. Iterables, that's the map object. So in simple way, the map actually is used to apply single transformation function to all iterable elements. So what does that mean is, if you have a function and you want to have some iterables. So iterables are basically an object that can be looped over. So for an example, sets and list, dictionaries, strings, all those are iterable objects. So if you have an iterable object and you want to apply a function on the elements of iterable objects, then you go for a map. So in case you are still not able to understand, let's start this with a small example. So let me create a small function. So let's say div, and then say multiply by 3, small function, and then let's say it takes a list as an input. Okay, and then let's say I'm getting this list and I want to multiply each item of this list by 3. So let's add a small, as a good coding practice. So function used to multiply items by 3. Okay, so now we get the list. So once we have the list, so let's apply a for loop. So item in input list. Okay, and then let's create another list where we add the new elements after it gets applied multiplied by 3. Okay, so this is an empty list. Okay, so what we will do here is new list dot append, and then what we will do here is we'll apply each item by 3. Okay, pretty simple. And then let's return this list, new list. Okay, pretty simple function. So now let's create our list. So I have a small list, and let's say the elements are 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now we will pass this list to this function that we have created. Okay, multiply by 3, and then we will just pass this new function, new list created. Okay, and then 6, 9, 12, 15. So pretty simple. This list got passed over here, and then each item is looped over one by one, and it's multiplied, and it returned the new list. Okay, now let's do the same thing by map. Okay, let's do this using map. Okay, so what we will do here is, so as we see here, it's a map and function and iterables. So map, and we have function multiply by 3, Okay, and then that's a function, and we want to pass an iterable. So here we have a list iterable. So let's say if I pass this, okay, yeah. So what map is doing here is it create a map object, and it's showing a memory location actually where exactly this is created. But in order to see the values, that's basically the map function is returning. So we have to convert that into list. Okay, so uh, let's copy this list. Okay, and then let's run this. Okay, we see an error. So when you see an error, it's good in one way. You get to learn more. So what it is saying here is int object is not iterable. So it's the problem is at line number 4. So let's go up at line number 4 in this function. So this is line number 4. So what it is saying here is that the int object is not iterable. So as I explained here, what map is doing is it's taking the values one by one and applying it to this function. So first it takes value 2 and then it comes over here, and then when it is coming here, so here the for loop is expecting an iterable, but what map function is passing, it's passing an int object, so it's passing a single value, so that's why it is throwing an error. So let's fix this by creating a new function. Okay, so here multiply by 3 and this time by map. Okay, so it expect single item. So let's say we say there's item. Okay, and then what we do here is just return item multiplied by 3. Okay, simple. Okay, now what we do here is do the same thing again. Okay, so now let's copy this, but this time we will be using this function. So what this function now, what will happen is it takes the value of this list one by one and pass it to this function and multiply by 3. Okay, let's see the result. Okay, pretty good. This is beautiful. Now you see, now this function is so clean and short and easy to understand. And also you can see that we are not calling this function. So like, you know that when we have to call the function, we have to give the bracket here. But here we are not calling even this function. We are just calling the memory location. And the map function is doing that for us. So that's the beauty of the map function. And also another important thing here is if I just print the list one, so you see the list is not being changed also. So map is applying the function on this list, but it's not modifying the list. This is the beauty of this map function. So the code is super clean, it's short, and it's not even updating the existing lists. It's a pure function. Just to reiterate this again, map is used to apply single transformation function to all iterable elements. Okay, now let's learn the filter function. Okay, let's start with what Python explains about filter function. Okay, what it is saying is filter function or none, and it's iterable. So it's the similar way how the map function works. But the benefit of filter function is map always return the same number of items, but filter function help you to filter some of the result. So let's see this by an example. So let me create a new function. So let's say this function is used to find if the value is divisible by 2. Okay, so let's say div civil by 2, and then uh, the parameter is an item, so it receives an item as a parameter and it will return. So we will use a modulo function here. So item and then by 2 is equal to 0. Okay, so it's a small function. Let's see our previous list also. So this was our list. So now what it will do here is so each value is passed from this list to this function, and it will loop through this value one by one, and the filter function will return true or false. So in short, it returns a Boolean value, and it tells whether the item should be filtered or not. If it is true, then it shouldn't be filtered. If it is false, then it should be filtered, and it shouldn't be in the return result. So let's see this. So let's go back to our previous, and then we have the same one. So let's copy this so that you should know what is the difference. So what we have to do here, we just need to change the filter here, and we give the new function here. Okay, so let's run this. Perfect. So now you see it filtered the value 3 and 5 because those were not divisible by 2. The modulo was not giving 0. And let's see our list 1. Perfect. So this is also behaved similar way as map. It is not updating the original list, so but it remains the same, and it's creating a new list. So it's a complete pure function. So that's the list function. That's the filter function. Now let's learn reduce function. Okay, so reduce function doesn't come as a part of Python library, so we need to import this reduce function using a func_tool module. So the way to do that is from func tools import reduce. Okay. Okay, so let's see what Python says about this function. Okay, so Python is saying that the syntax is function and then the sequence, some iterable data and some initial value. So basically the use of reduce function is when you want to reduce the list to a single value. So let's understand this by an example. So let's say I want to calculate the total for a list. So let's say I create a function calculate total, and then I have an input list. Okay, and then let's say for item in input list, so total is equal to item, so it will iterate over. So let's define this. So it will iterate over this value and then calculate the sum. Okay, so return total. Okay, let's create a list. So the values we put here is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and let's run the function calculate. Oops, I think I missed the L here, so let's add here typo. Okay, calculate total. Okay, and then my list. Okay, perfect. So it adds up. So this is the usual way to do that, but with the help of Let's see how we can do that with the help of reduce. Let's do this with the help of reduce function. Okay, so let's create a small function. So the function that should be defined, so calculate total using reduce. So when we use any function, we define a function that should be used for the reduced function. So we have to give two parameters here. So initial val, and then the items that we will iterate over. So because as I explained here, this is a sequence, it's an iterable data, and then the function and the initial val. So what this will do is return initial val plus item. Okay, so now let's call this reduce function. So reduce, so the function name, so first parameter is the function name. Okay, and the second parameter is our iterable list, so my list, and then let's run this. Perfect, so it returns the 15 number. So the default value of initial item, what it is doing is, so that's the third parameter that we have to define in the reduce function. So default is 0, but let's say we define just a 10. So what it will do is, it will initial value will be given as a 10. Okay, let's first run this and I'll explain this. So okay, perfect. So what happened here is initial value was 10. So what it is doing is it is adding a 10 here, and then the first item it takes it as a 1. So now this become 10 plus 1. Now what happens here, in the second iteration again, it gives this value as an 11 here. So now this will become as an 11, and the item here will become 2. So then it will become 2, and similar way it becomes 13. So then this will become 13, and the third item will become 3. So it will keep on iterating until it reaches to the end of the list. So let me change this back here, initial val and id. Okay, so it's a powerful function, and usually it takes some practice to get used to it, but it is used by advanced programmer, Python programmer a lot. So I hope now you are clear with map, filter, and reduce function. These three are very powerful functions. And in our next video, we will learn the lambda function. Thanks for watching.